FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Buzianis, no call! Score!
Salamidi for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Blasts. Yes! That's it!
Miljevic.
Beautiful ball! Here's Bozanic. They might have won it!
The Pioneers with George DONIKIAN and George Kotzanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Yes, time to raise the levels on the old FNR app.
Is part of the terminology, part of our football terminology, because it's the Johnson Krncevic era is often talked about when the guys who were pioneers who went overseas at the beginning, really they've like it's like the Victorian era or the Edwardian era. There is a Krncevic Johnson.
Where did you first see Eddie?
I remember seeing Eddie at Essendon, Croatia, or Melbourne, Croatia, and then obviously have memories of him making a move to Marconi, and then obviously the big flash going overseas and you know being one of the first. And like I said, at the time it was pretty much Craig Johnson and Eddie who were carving out decent careers overseas. So growing up, that's huge in the memory, and for everyone who listens to our program, everyone in our generation, our time frame, understands that was huge, and that's why we're so lucky to have Eddie in with us this afternoon or this evening.
So where did it start, Eddie? Did it start at Essendon or did it start at Croatia?
Well, it actually started at Corio in Geelong.
Where you were born?
Where I was born. As a 6-year-old, I was going to training and they were telling me that I was too young. And, I just kept being a pest. And eventually they let me train, and I was training. And as an 8-year-old, I was playing the under-11s. So never touched the ball, but that was my first start.
Playing on a big field.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But the funny story about that is we went to Ringwood in Melbourne, and I didn't tell my parents as an 8-year-old. I just went on the bus.
Geelong to Ringwood.
Geelong, yeah, Geelong to Ringwood. That's right.
Wow.
And I remember having no lunch, and we got a bottle of Coca-Cola, and there was this kid playing against under-12s, and I got home and I didn't get belted, but everyone was concerned, where's he gone? And he's come back after 3 or 4 hours on the bus, gone and play football. So I think that determination was already there at a certain age, the passion for the game. So I think it might have started from that point there.
You watch a lot of people playing football these days. Is that the ingredient you're always looking for? That hunger, that zest to play?
I think today, in the professional world, you need to have that hunger, that winning mentality. That there's just so much talent alone is not enough, unfortunately, in the modern day game. You need to be mentally strong. You need to be driven. You need to set yourself a goal first as a youngster. This is who I want to play for. And in saying that, I might want to bring up Marco Bresciano. When I had him at Carlton, the first thing I said to him was, what's your goal? He said, I want to play for Juventus one day. And he looked at me really serious and went on to obviously have a fantastic career. But he's an example. I'll just use him again. After 6 months, he came back from Empoli. He bought me a bottle of scotch and he said, Ed, this is for you, thank you very much. I said, okay, so how are you going, Marco? Good. I said, okay, so what are you earning? Now, what are you earning? I think at the time he said $40,000. So I said, that's not bad a month. He goes, no, that's a year, and I don't care about the money. I just want to make it. So for me, I use that example to youngsters. I look for that because I think
it's not about this.
That's right. And he went on to have an unbelievable career, and financially, obviously. But he was driven to play at the highest level, which he did.
Were you driven?
I was exactly the same. I mean, I played for Australia at the age of 18, played for 3 years. There wasn't anything left for me in Australia. I'd done everything. So I wanted to see if I was good enough to play in Europe, to test myself.
Was that what you were telling yourself, or
yes.
others were telling you?
I was telling myself.
What were others telling you, by the way? at the time?
Not much. I think, and without sounding too conceited, I think I was head and shoulders above most players at that age. Whether it was talent or I was driven. I think Rudy Goodenough at one stage said, "Look, you'll be worth a lot of money one day," and I was an 18-year-old. So I think he must have saw something at that stage. But no, I was just self-driven. I'll give you an example. As a teenager, used to get up before school at 4 o'clock in the morning and go for these long runs. Come back, have a little sleep, have a shower, come back after school, and then go to training. So I was constantly doing stuff. And when it did get hard for me, I kept reminding myself, you know what, do this, even though you feel sick and it's really hard, one day you'll get up to the top. It will help you out beneficial. So, self-driven, I guess.
How did a boy from Geelong end up at Melbourne, Croatia? In the juniors?
Yeah, my father moved to Melbourne for work, and obviously being Croatian descent, he was a member of Melbourne, Croatia from 1968, and that's when I started to play for Melbourne, Croatia juniors as a 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And I had some wonderful times there with some of the players that we played with, and
Some
parents.
of the players, name the names, some of the characters.
Just characters.
You rang up and spoke to someone who you played some football with recently, young Tommy Cumming.
Tommy Cumming was definitely one. But that was at Essendon Lions. As a 15, I started playing as a 15-year-old in the first team, and sort of in and out. And the Billy Wojtek's, who was my idol as well. I remember watching him at Olympic Park. It might have been against Aberdeen, scoring a diving header, and I was a ball boy behind the goal, jumping up for joy. So for me it was, and then eventually I ended up playing with him, and I was a bit starstruck because he's another example. He was a fantastic dribbler, good shot. So in the modern era, it's probably a player that could have played in this era. But he was a great example for the youngsters, Billy Wojtek.
Other teammates in those early days, 16, 17-year-old, I think we mentioned a few before. Kenny Murphy, who
played for Australia, brilliant also.
What sort of influence did these guys? I know you mentioned it when you rang in, but as a young boy, in hindsight, say like when you had some hard times in Europe, when things were getting tough and you had to be mentally tougher,
Yeah.
do you think in hindsight that what you learned from a lot of those ex-pros when you were a young boy at Croatia?
There's no doubt. The Alan Kerrs of the world, very tough boy, George McMillan, these are all expats.
Yep.
With extraordinary strength mentally and physically, winners. Training was exactly the same as the way they played.
Yeah.
They trained hard, and they played exactly the same way. And I was lucky to be mentored by those players, and one person in particular at that stage for my development, Johnny Gardner. He was a very important influence for me. Not only was a fantastic footballer, but technically he had a brilliant mind as a coach as well. So he gave me the opportunity as a youngster in that team of seniors. So he was actually playing. He said, "No, you're going to play." And I recall playing in the final, the APOL Cup final against George Cross. As a 16-year-old, I scored 2 goals. We won 2-0 or 2-1, but we won the APOL Cup.
Yep.
So, but he was a mentor. But most of those old players, because I was so young, they sort of took me under the wing.
We're seeing a crop of youngsters come through now.
Yes.
One of the challenges, of course, is how they cope with the fandom, the fans. If they do well, the pressure is very special. If they do poorly, they get heaped on. What did you feel? Did you feel any pressure from the terraces in those early days as a 15, 16-year-old playing against men?
Not really, George. I sort of just went out there and played the game. I mean, there was one instance, it's quite funny, APOL Cup, came on as a sub, and I tackled some guy from Franks. I can't remember his name, the Scottish centre-half. Went for the ball, missed and got him. I was aggressive. And I've turned around, and he's punched me, right? And I've gone down and I think, geez, is this what the game's about? As a kid, we're punching each other. But the poor soul, I had all my uncles in the grandstand waiting for him. When they didn't do anything, but they had to be escorted out. Yeah, but it was a tough game back then, right? I mean, obviously today it's scrutinised with footage and so forth. VAR, which, yeah, I know. That's a dilemma. That's an argument point, isn't it? I think they should really only bring that in on goal line / penalties, I guess.
Or simulation.
Or simulation, yeah, correct.
Or not at all, if you're of the
I
old school.
I think the word that we can't run away from is that the 21st century wants it. It's in so many other sports. Let's make sure we learn to use it properly.
Correct.
Take a line out of Edi's book. Take us back to those very early days, those exciting days when you were making your way. Was Melbourne, Croatia a great fit for you at that time?
Oh yeah, it was just a great club, and the parents, the people running the club. It was exciting. It was an exciting place to be at. At the time, it was Essendon Lions, and it was in Albion Street. It was Brunswick.
Yeah.
And it was next door to a traffic school.
Traffic school's still there.
Still there, is it? I remember, yeah, never went there, but I was always dying to go there, you know. But they were great memories because the training sessions were great, and there was a lot of people watching the training sessions, and they took care of the people. You know, they made you part of the club. It was it was nice. It's like being in a big family. And I enjoyed it because, it was what I loved.
You made an impact as an Australian junior international. Some of the guys that you played with, they made an impact on your life, didn't they?
Yeah, those boys, the George Christopoulos, Danny Millis, Charlie Yankos was a bit lower. I did play with. He was younger than me. Sorry, Charlie.
He'll love that he was younger.
Yeah, he looks older now, but doesn't really matter now. Charlie and I played in the senior team against Israel in that qualifiers, but no, he wasn't a part of that. We had Peter Trudenick, who became a lawyer. Danny Mullis, who became a lawyer. We had our captain Ian Rowden. He became head of Coca-Cola at Atlanta. So
it's not a bad gig.
Yeah, that's right. So nice memories. We had a team of really hard workers. Technically, were we as good as the South Americans? No, of course, but it was a good experience. And of course, we had Rudy Gutenhoff, who had us in camps. The first time that I'd been in a camp was with Rudy Gutenhoff, and I recall a funny story. I was with George Christopoulos, Alan Davidson, myself, and I can't remember the fourth player from Victoria, but we were all going up for trials in Sydney.
Was it Manly? Or?
No, it was up in
Engadine?
Up in the hills.
Okay. Doesn't matter.
Slipped my mind,
Doesn't
but
matter.
we were late, and we pulled up in a taxi, and all you could hear is this yelling and screaming from this German coach. And I went, oh my God, what are we going to say to him? We're late. And anyway, we're in this dormitory. We're training as like full timers.
It was Dural.
That's right, Dural. Great facilities, but we were training like professionals. So as 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, that was something unheard of for us. So that's what we were doing, training every day and twice a day, and that was the first sort of professional experience we had. But there was 100 guys in this dormitory, and the stories are unbelievable. So no one's sleeping because everyone's excited. Anyway, so that was my first experience on becoming a so-called professional footballer.
Well, you've whet our appetite. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking to Edi Krncevic on the Pioneers 2018 star. Very good. Excellent. That's what I want.
Interviews from across football
Perfect.
Australia.
Pick up, run, handball, kick.
If I'm
And the shins.
Yeah.
We needed that perspective to get in. What he meant to you.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see him till later. I saw him on television.
Yeah.
But
SBS.
Gerald, we played at the Australian Schoolboys there. We went there too.
But that was unbelievable.
Fantastic facility.
Yeah, it was incredible for the time. Yeah, it was
Boys up there.
We've got some funny stories.
Anything we can talk about?
People have wonderful
I think someone had a shaved eyebrow, just, some fellas, the same, the boy stuff. You dare not fall asleep.
Yeah, because they'll wet you.
Both eyes shut because you wake up in the morning with one eyebrow. Yeah, stuff like that. It's just
Sensational.
But they're nice memories, George. The dual thing is, and we play. The other funny part about that is we kept playing the same bloody team. That's the game. You couldn't play that many teams. It was always the same team. Now, Nepean. And we kept beating them 5-6
was the rep side.
Yeah, but we kept beating them. We were too strong. But the reason why Rudy was playing against this team,
Format,
but the guy was Hungarian, used to bring all his homemade salami.
So he kept getting salami. Bravo.
So he was, the first week, he put on training sessions, and after that, he was in the sun with his top off all the time, telling Charlie, "Sir, can you put a sunblock on my..." That was funny, and he had Les Shines like it. It was just...
What was Shines look like?
Les was pretty much he was the assistant, because he was German as well.
Yeah.
Look, I guess Rudy instilled a bit of professionalism.
This is before you went away, yeah?
Yeah, this is like the German side. And I don't think a lot of the Australian boys in that national team
Grabbed it, huh?
grabbed it. And he was a bit eccentric and a bit... for anyone that's walking down the street with a lamb in Germany on a chain, he was eccentric. But there was some
He splits the room, right?
Yeah,
He splits the room.
that's right. Well,
That's 0428 933 345. FNR Football Nation
but
Radio.
for me, like I said, I know there's mixed feelings. He gave me my first chance, and he believed in me. And I'll give you an example. I had a groin injury against.
Mention on that.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
The Pioneers.
How long?
We have about a minute.
Good. We'll talk about
Yeah, no, bring that up to New Zealand because then I know what to say.
Yeah, good stuff.
It's an example on a coach having faith in
Well, better still, you start. Really good or divided opinion. Let's touch that up.
Yeah.
Explain to us.
Should we go to Marconi first or do Rudy?
Rudy first, and then we go Mark. Okay. Because I want to talk about Belgium. Yeah, you started.
Take it?
Yeah. And you'd have to say our names because they're...
Mike's up.
Welcome back to the Pioneers. We're with Edi Krncevic. Eddie, word association. We'll go with Rudy Guttendorf, the man that splits the room.
Yeah. Look, yeah. There's obviously some players that were in that era didn't like him, and for whatever reason, everyone's got their opinion. For me, he was really the person that gave me my first chance. A great believer in me. There was one instance when we were playing New Zealand World Cup qualifiers in Auckland, and I'd been in a little bit of poor form, sore groins from just playing too many games, and he came up to me before the game, the warm-up. He said, "Listen, Les Shifley was assistant coach. Les has been telling me not to play you, but I'm playing you because I believe you're the best player in this team." I scored 2 goals that day. I was in a lot of pain. It was a game we drew 3-3, but that was an example. He had a lot of faith in me, and so for me, I can really only say, there's funny stories about him as well, but as a youngster, and I think I can speak for the likes of Alan Davidson and George Christopoulos, myself, we're only 18-year-olds, and to have a chance to play for your national team at that age, representing Australia, is probably the most honourable thing you could do. as a sportsman. He gave me an opportunity, so I've got great words about him.
Very
There's no
good.
doubt.
The poll's running about 50-50.
And for those who remember Rudy Gudendorf the various eccentric moments, there was one that you touched on that I love that you need to remind us of.
I mean,
and it's the one about why you played a particular team, a representative team from the Nepean.
That's right. We kept playing a team called Nepean. Every week, twice a week, we're beating them 5-6-0. Oh, geez, who are we playing this week? Nepean for a change. Now, I mean, he was obviously doing it for
A reason
tactically, but there's another side.
Another tactic.
The other side was the coach was Hungarian, and he kept bringing Rudy homemade sausages like salamis. You know, he wasn't sharing it with us, and wine and that. So
Nepean it was again tomorrow.
So Nepean next week. Who we play next week? So there's a bit of a joke with the boys. We get so who we play next week for a change? Nepean. But yeah.
Very good. Well, Marconi came calling. Any hesitation, or what were you thinking? What was this the next step that you were looking for? Why Marconi?
Well, no hesitation. I remember the day that Les Scheinflug and Tony Labazzetto came to our house in Pascoval, and Les had obviously seen me play in the youth team and thought that, you know, I'd be a good signing for Marconi, so he'd seen enough. So they eventually came to our house and agreed to sign with him for 3 years, and moved up to Sydney as an 18-year-old. So it was a big move for me, but a wonderful time as well, because that's all I did is play football, trained individually with the likes of Roberto Vieri, Ivo Prescalo that passed away a few years ago. They were my mentors, and
Great players.
again, you know, I was the youngest player in that team, and at one stage, that Marconi team that won the 1979 National League, we played New Zealand in a friendly, and there was 8 or 9 players from Marconi representing Australia. So that was pretty incredible. So we had a great team. It was a good era. There's a lot of players that had a lot of good technique, and they were quick. So we pretty much blitzed that year, 1979 and 80. I guess, and then it was Sydney City after that. But they were great times for me as well, playing in the same team as Roberto Vieri, who played for Sampdoria, Juventus, countless big name Italian teams, who was a real number 10. And you know, you just make a run and the ball's at your feet. So you know, that for me.
You're getting spoiled, weren't you?
Well, I was getting spoiled. You know, I've never seen anything like that. You know, it was extraordinary. He was 37 when he came out, so. He couldn't run that much, but when he had the ball, so I became good friends with him, learned Italian, and also babysitted his son Christian Vieri, who we all know, became international Italy.
Yeah.
He was a shit of a kid.
Must have been the babysitter. What do you reckon?
Yeah, no, but you know, moments like that. You know, when you see kids like that come through. That you know, you've been a part of their life in a sense.
It's special. It's special.
Yeah, it's special, but they were great times at Marconi. Like I said, we won the championship, won the Phillips Cup.
What was competition like in those days?
Yeah, it was fierce, good crowds. You know, Marconi, I think it held 8,000. That would be pretty much full on a Sunday. I think my first game for Marconi against Sydney City at Wentworth Park.
Yes.
18,000 people. And we won that game 4-0. And back then, if you beat a team by four goals,
bonus point.
and that we actually won the championship because we beat so many teams 4-0, 6-0.
Yeah, we won by 4 points, I think, from Heidelberg.
So and just going back to Rudy quickly, since we're talking about Marconi,
of course,
he brought in another great thing, which I think we should probably learn from it in our modern day era. Is that every single team in that National League had to field 2 under-19 players. They had to be on the team sheet. So it was forward thinking, and I think he suggested the Summer League as well. So, I mean, he had some plans that were ahead of time, I guess, which, you know, we're using at this moment.
I guess if you throw enough dartboards at the board, you're bound to hit with some of them.
Although I'll bring that up, I made a comment about playing summer football. That, you know, whoever said that should be thrown to the gallows. I got fined for that. As I was only, I thought, 40 degrees. Who wants to run in 40 degrees? I mean, it's hard. It's not easy. But I felt, he brought in some interesting ideas.
So when did the bug to travel get into your system?
Well, I, as you know, back then the Australian team only played against teams from Europe.
Mainly club sides.
Club sides, and we did a tour in Europe, and we played against the England B team. In Birmingham, we lost 1-0. Then we played in Florence against Fiorentina. I think we lost 1 or 2-0. Great team. And then out of the blue, which wasn't planned, we went and played against Dinamo Zagreb. And that was, for me, that was exciting because I've never been to, it was Yugoslavia back then, and it was exciting. But we played a Dinamo Zagreb team. It was sort of snowing with Umbro tops on with holes in. That was minus, I don't know what. They beat us 4-0. They just absolutely killed us. I didn't play too bad. I got taken off, but I went to see my grandmother. It was a 7-hour drive from there straight after the game, and when I came back the next evening, Ivo Priscalo, who was my roommate, said, "Do you want to come to Dinamo Zagreb?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I had the board of directors talking to me last night." I said, yeah, and thought nothing of it. And then we got on the bus, and we were on the plane, and wasn't going anywhere. So the board members, a couple of board members, got on the plane and gave me all these souvenirs from Dinamo Zagreb, and that was exciting. And then nothing happened. That was December, and then come January they toured Australia, and we played a game in Canberra 3-3, and they wanted to sign me straight away after that game, but Marconi wouldn't let me go. They wanted to take me straight away with them, so I waited until the end of the year, end of the season. I wasn't motivated back then, that last year, so all I wanted to do is go to Zagreb on a trial, mind you, which I did. Eventually go for a trial, and my first game off the bench I scored 4 goals, so straight away they were jumping around me, and did sign a 4-year contract, and then I had to come back and negotiate with Marconi and Soccer Australia back then, because Marconi was asking too much money. They were asking for $50,000 at the time, which was a lot, considerable amount of money. So yeah, it's pretty much started from there. My bug, that's how it started.
You're going over there, you're a professional, you've signed. We want an insight into what happens, not so much on the field, because we know you score a lot of goals and you played, and you've done, but what happens to a young Aussie boy, away from home, when things aren't going well, and you are a foreigner still, in a sense.
Even though you could speak the language.
Yeah, you can speak the language, but you're still going to take someone's job.
Yeah.
You're going to take their living away.
Yeah. I guess there was a lot of fuss about me because I was the first foreigner back then, although I had Croatian heritage, to be playing in their league. Well, I wasn't playing. I was still. I started to train. I remember being pretty embarrassed on how technically gifted all the players were, and my way around that was obviously to train hard and be aggressive, and eventually, my technique improved. And, they were just extraordinary players, and I learned a lot from my time in Zagreb, 2.5 years. I didn't play that much, but I learned a lot. I had a lot of good training sessions, individual sessions, which I think as an individual helped me after my move from Zagreb to progress to a successful professional career.
So where did you go after Zagreb?
Well, at the time, my wife Maggie was pregnant with our son Jesse, and we didn't want to have the child there because it was a socialist country, and the hospitals are pretty poor. And I remember she was saying to me, "Look, I'm not having our child here. The hospitals are filthy," which she was right. That was a part of the era. So my first offer, I just wanted to get. I had an offer in between to go to Pisa, Italy, first division. They scouted me. The president loved me. Signed the pre-contract.
And you could speak Italian, of course.
Signed the pre-contract. They had us over there. Everything was great. Met the players. and they lost the last game of the season and were relegated into the second division. Therefore, as a foreigner back then, I couldn't go. So I was devastated. I cried, and I was pretty upset about it because I had my heart set on playing in Italy. Anyway, so I did get a call from MSV Duisburg. No trial. I just went over there, did a medical, and the president of the club said, "You're the first player that we're actually signing without seeing him." And I said, "Well, how?" My ex-coach, Branko Zebec, who was a famous coached Bayern Munich, played for Yugoslavia many times. When they rang him to ask about me, he said, "Who is at Duisburg? What do you think?" He said, "Look, you're in the second division. He should be playing in the Bundesliga." And those words were enough for them to sign me, which was quite weird. Anyway, I just stayed there. I was only there for 6 months. It was a pretty hard time for me. I was thinking about coming back to Australia, and then things turned. I had a trial in Belgium, and that worked out well. So there are tough times. And I was fortunate that I had my wife, Maggie, with me to fall back on and to whinge. Yeah. And she was one of those. She wasn't soft. Get on with it and go and show. It wasn't one of those where, "Oh, you poor thing." Nah, it was always
Fantastic.
Get out there and get off your bum.
Yeah, so it's still a tough existence, right?
Yeah, of course.
You're not really earning a lot of money
No.
in comparison to, say, like what the good earners back here would have been earning in the NSL. Would there have been a lot of difference, do you think?
Well, look, in Yugoslavia at the time, 2.5 years, I was just getting a good wage. That was it.
Yeah.
Enough to go out to restaurants and so forth. And even in Germany, the other reason that I think I was driven as well is my time in Germany. I didn't have much money, and all of a sudden I've got a son to feed. So I had a big responsibility as a 24-year-old to step up
And be the earner.
and be the earner. So that for me was a huge motivation. The love for my son and obviously my wife to go out there and go for it. So I was driven by that thought as well.
The new motivation to.
Well,
to
new
make
motivation.
it,
I've got to really
Yeah.
put in even more.
It's not
than
about
I've put in.
Edi Krncevic.
No,
anymore.
that's
Yeah.
right. Because football's become egoist. It's all about them. Some could say narcissists in a sense.
While you're pondering, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more about your moves in Europe, and of course your time in Belgium, and of course leading goal scorer in Europe at a time, and a very exciting time, especially for a guy from down under, known as, what they call you? Not a kangaroo.
My time in Europe, flying kangaroo, or Nebeski skakač, which means sky jumper. You could jump to the sky, So it's,
This is FNR, and you're listening to The Pioneers with Edi Krncevic.
Best player, the most talented player that I played with. There's actually a few, but I'll just mention one in Belgium.
Yep.
A young boy at that time was only 18, Enzo Schiffel, who went on to play for Belgium.
Outstanding player.
Outstanding football. He was 18 at the time. I was roommates with him, and he's another example as an 18-year-old. He was out there an hour before everyone with the ball. That was it.
It's no mistake. He worked hard.
He worked hard, and a brilliant footballer, and went into Milan as a 19-year-old, had a great career. But anyway, he was some difficult defenders in that time. But if I've got time, I'll just tell you a quick story. There was one particular player, Dutch defender, couldn't score a goal against him I could not do anything. And one day I decided to put some hot Denka rub on my hand and rubbed it in his eye. This was Mechelen, this was a Belgian Cup semi-final, and he couldn't see. I eventually scored a goal, and we won 2-0. He came off. He was cursing. He goes, "You put something in my eye." So I don't know what you're talking about. But that was the measure. I wanted to win, and I couldn't score against this guy for years.
It's all right, we'll edit this part out. Right?
Thank you for coming on. It's great to have you. An hour is never enough. We say that every week. We're happy to showcase you. You are a pioneer. The reverse to what we've had, because you've gone overseas, and well done.
Thank you.
Great career.
Thank you.
Every accolade you get. And the underlying story that we've had from all our pioneers on this thing is hard work, dedication, and passion.
Yes.
No
Catching
shortcuts.
trains, no shortcuts, no
Correct.
shortcuts. So
Correct.
we're teaching the kids something,
Yep.
even if they aren't listening at the moment. So thank you for being on
They
the show.
might be in bed. Yeah, thank you.
Edi Krncevic on the Pioneers, George Katsanis and George Donikian back next week, and we have a special guest next week.
Dino DeMarchi, Juventus legend.
Fantastic. There you go, my boy. All the very best. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Awesome stuff. Awesome.
All right.
Well done, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.
You drop me home?
Yeah.
FNR, Football Nation Radio.
Butzianis, no call! Score!
Salamini for Cole. Cole on the run. Shoots. 2-0.
Lazanovsky with the free kick. Launches a rocket! Trimboli, what vision! Marth blasts. Yes! That's it!
Miljevic.
Here's Bozanic. They haven't! They might have won it!
The Pioneers with George Donikian and George Kotzanis on FNR, Football Nation Radio.